The night I stopped asking my husband questions, the house sounded louder than it ever had. It was just the refrigerator humming, the clock over the stove ticking like it always did, and the faint scrape of his shoes by the door. But something inside me went quiet, like a candle blown out by a breath I hadn't felt coming. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream. I didn't say a word. I stood there with my back to him, rinsing a coffee mug that didn't need rinsing, and I realized something clear and cold settle into my chest. The truth doesn't need help when it's ready to speak. Before all of that, before silence became my strongest language, our life looked ordinary in the way people envy without realizing it. We had been married for 14 years. Not the kind of marriage that glows on social media, but the kind that holds together quietly. Shared routines. Shared groceries. Shared complaints about the weather and the price of gas. His name was Daniel, and he worked in corporate finance for a regional firm that liked to talk about family values in its newsletters. I worked part-time at the local library, mostly evenings because it made sense for our schedule, and because I loved the smell of old pages and dust and quiet thinking. Our home sat on a corner lot with a maple tree that dropped leaves like it was trying to apologize every autumn. The kitchen light flickered sometimes, and Daniel kept saying he'd fix it.
He always said that.
I learned to live with the flicker. We didn't have children, not by choice, not entirely by chance either. It was one of those things that lived between us without being spoken about too often. We loved our nieces and nephews, hosted holidays, sent birthday cards with checks tucked inside. People said we were lucky. I believed them most days. Daniel had his habits. He hummed when he shaved. He lined his shoes up with military precision by the door. He hated crumbs on the counter, but somehow never noticed the ones he made himself. I knew the rhythm of him so well that when something shifted, my body felt it before my mind did. It started with his phone. Not the obvious way people imagine. No lipstick marks, no perfume that didn't belong to me. Just a phone turned face down more often. A thumb moving faster when I walked into the room. A laugh that stopped short, like a door closing quickly. I told myself I was being paranoid. That marriages age the way houses do. Small cracks, unfamiliar sounds a night. I told myself not to become one of those women who searched for meaning in shadows. But I noticed. He stayed late at work more often, always with a plausible reason. End of quarter reports. Client dinners. This promotion cycle is brutal, he told me one evening, loosening his tie with a tired smile. Everyone's watching. That promotion mattered to him. It was the kind that changed titles, changed salaries, changed the way people looked at you in rooms. Senior director. Corner office. His name printed higher up on the company website. He talked about it like it was already his, and I believed in him the way wives are trained to do, quietly, steadily, without applause. When the firm announced they'd be hosting a formal dinner to celebrate the promotion, Daniel came home almost buoyant. "They're inviting spouses," he said, reaching for a beer. "Big deal. Partners. Executives. Even the board." I smiled and congratulated him. I even teased him about needing a new suit. On the outside, I played my role perfectly. On the inside, something had already started pulling back, the way tidewater retreats before you realize a wave is coming. The weeks leading up to that dinner were strange in small ways. Daniel started going on morning runs again, something he'd abandoned years ago. He bought a new cologne without mentioning it, sharp and unfamiliar. He criticized the way I folded his shirts, something he'd never cared about before. And there was one night, I remember it because of the rain, that I woke up to find his side of the bed cold. I found him in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch, phone in hand, the glow lighting his face in a way that felt intimate and wrong. "Everything okay?" I asked. He flinched. "Just a little." "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Just couldn't sleep." I nodded. I went back to bed. I stared at the ceiling fan until morning. Silence, I was learning, could be both shield and weapon. The first real crack, the one that drew blood, came a few days later. I was doing laundry, separating colors from whites like I always did, when his phone buzzed on the dryer. He'd left it there, careless or confident. I couldn't tell. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. The screen lit up.
I can't stop thinking about last night.
No name. Just the message. I stood there longer than I should have, listening to the drier thump, feeling my pulse in my ears. When the screen went dark again, it felt like a decision had been made for me. That was the moment I understood something important about myself. I didn't want explanations wrapped in lies. I didn't want apologies that came too early. I didn't want to beg the truth out of someone who was actively hiding it. I wanted the truth to arrive on its own feet. So I stayed quiet. I cooked his favorite meals. I asked about his day. I nodded at the right moments. I let him believe his performance was flawless. Inside, I was cataloging everything, the dates, the changes, the careful way he avoided looking me in the eye when he talked about work. And somewhere between folding his shirts and choosing my dress for that promotion dinner, I made a decision that would change everything. If the truth was brave enough to follow him into a room full of people who mattered, I would let it speak. I just needed to give it time.